Hey, Stella. Bring any carrots for me today?
Of course, she said, and held out a carrot so he could take a bite. Eglantine hurried over to gobble up the grain that Leonard had dropped. When the goose had cleaned it all up, Maggie spread some on the floor of an empty stall. Eglantine can stay in here while we feed the tiny horses. Stella laughed. All she's done this morning is eat. If she eats much more, she'll be too fat to walk.
There's nothing wrong with that, said Leonard.
Maggie opened the door to the tiny horses' stall. The horses were smaller than bumblebees. Some had wings like butterflies, while others had wings like flies or beetles or dragonflies folded across their backs. As the girls walked in, the horses galloped to the far side of their puddle-sized lake. The moment Maggie and Stella set berries on the floor, Tickles, one of the bravest of the horses, trotted back. He came within inches of Maggie and didn't budge when she set another berry in front of him.
He's not afraid of you anymore, Bob said from the doorway.
Do you think he's forgiven me for accidentally breaking his wing? Maggie asked.
I'm sure of it, said Bob. He'll forgive anything as long as you keep bringing him berries.
Chapter 2. The girls were still in the stall playing with the tiny horses when Nora came by carrying a covered basket. I saw that Stella was here, so I packed you girls a picnic lunch, said Nora. Why don't you take a break, Maggie? I know you've been up since dawn. I'm sure Bob can spare you for a little while, can't you, dear?
I suppose I can if I have to, he replied, but he was smiling when Maggie glanced his way.
If you follow the stream behind the stable, you'll find a pretty little waterfall just inside the woods, said Nora. Bob and I used to take our daughter there for picnics when she was young. I love waterfalls, exclaimed Stella. So does Eglantine. Maggie laughed. Then I guess we'll have to go. Maggie had never had a friend like Stella before. They got along so easily, and Maggie didn't need to worry that Stella might criticize her or tattle to get her in trouble. True, Maggie had fun when she was with Bob and Nora and the animals, but she had a different kind of fun when she was with Stella. They enjoyed a lot of the same things and always had plenty to talk about. It helped that both of them were eager to try new things, too. A trip to a waterfall that would have been pleasant on her own sounded like a lot more fun with Stella. As they followed the stream, the two girls chatted about the tiny horses. Maggie was still careful to keep an eye on what was going on around them, since the Enchanted Forest was full of dangerous creatures, while Stella watched over Eglantine. The goose was tied to a long pink ribbon, with the other end wrapped around Stella's wrist. The ribbon gave the goose enough room to hunt for bugs on the faint path that ran beside the stream. She was chasing a butterfly down the path when the girls heard the waterfall. After that, it was a race to see who could get there first. Eglantine was the winner. It was a pretty spot, with the waterfall only a few feet high, tumbling into a pool edged with delicate blue flowers. The girls found a large, flat, sun-warmed rock just past the reach of the mist. Eglantine plopped into the water, while the girls sat down on the rock and opened the basket. Although Maggie hadn't felt hungry before, that changed as soon as she saw the food. Warm, crusty bread, savory sausage, and crumbling white cheese were extra delicious at the edge of a waterfall after their walk. The jug of fresh, creamy milk only made it better. Once Eglantine saw that they were eating, she came over to beg for bread crusts. Stella tossed her one now and then, so they finished the bread before anything else. The girls were starting on the apples they'd found in the bottom of the basket when Maggie smelled something awful. She and Stella looked up at the same time. 3 goblins were arguing as they approached the other side.